Welcome everyone to the Software Test Professionals Community Webinar. My name is Peggy Libby and I am filling in for Smita Mishra today. Today our webinar is Connecting Manual Testers to the DevOps Era. We have Mr. Dror Todress as our presenter today. Before we get started, I have just a few messages and announcements to share with you. The first is an announcement about our upcoming conference, October 22nd through 25th at the Sheraton Pentagon City. You can find information out about our conference at www.stpcon.com. At this conference, we will have 18 workshops, 30 sessions, several tool demos, and many networking opportunities. We encourage you to attend. And again, you can find our schedule and more information about not only the hotel, but the conference and the pricing and the packages at stpcon.com. A quick reminder, our next webinar will be on July 11th. That will be presented by Dmitry Vinnik, and he will be speaking on mobile visual testing, uphill battle of mobile visual regression. A few housekeeping announcements. Attendees will be muted during the presentation. If you will please type your questions in the questions panel, we will get those answered for you at the end of the webinar. Also, please note that this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted to our website a day or two after the webinar, after we have it edited. And you will receive an email that will have the link to the recorded webinar. You can find us at SoftwareTestPro, our Twitter, on both Twitter account, and if you want to give us feedback, please reference our pound STP webinar. So let's get started. Dror Todress is the co-founder and CEO of TestCraft. He is an experienced entrepreneur with a proven ability to recognize a need in the market, create the right solution for the need, and lead the company to success. Since he founded TestCraft, Dror has met and learned from test executives about their testing challenges and has worked with them on solving those challenges. Today, he will be sharing with us his thoughts on connecting manual testers to the DevOps era. So please welcome Mr. Dror Todress.
Okay, I hope you all can hear me. Thank you, Peggy. Thanks for the intro. Set this up. Okay, and we're ready to go. So again, hello everybody. As Peggy mentioned, I'm a CEO of TestCraft, and I'm going to share our thoughts on how to connect manual testers and why should you connect manual testers to the DevOps era. I may mention our solution from time to time, but I'm not going to turn that into a sales pitch. It's just as reference to some of the ideas that I'm going to share with you. So let's start with discussing digital transformation. What does it mean? What do I mean by digital transformation? This is actually something that we all experience firsthand on a daily basis. Imagine your interactions with your bank in the past few years, with your healthcare provider, with your telco, even your interactions with the government. How many of them have turned digital and gone online in the past few years compared to physical interactions? So we all feel that, we all experience that, and I'll discuss the challenges that pose in a second. But just a few statistics on that. This is from a McKinsey report from last year, actually reviewing the interactions that customers have with banks across the world. This blue line that you see is the equality line, meaning below that there's more digital interactions than physical ones, and above that there are more physical. You can see that some areas of the world are already all the way digital, like Nordics, but you can very clearly see the trends going this way. And this is just numbers to prove what we all feel, that a lot of those interactions are going online. Now, if this is true for banks, it's probably true for some industries, related industries like financial services, insurance company, even government, as I mentioned, but it's definitely true for the more customer-facing or how should I put it, the more modern approach type verticals like retail, telcos, fashion, and others. So this is really happening. And that poses a lot of challenges of companies. This has become a significant competitive factor for customers. So customers are not only opening up their services to digital, they're also competing on that front. Customers always have alternatives, and they actually companies measure brands by the digital experience that those brands deliver. So companies have to act on that. They need to try different ways to address customers. They need to change, they need to adapt, and they need to do that fast. So that shift could not be achieved with previous or with older software development methodologies like Waterfall, and there is a clear shift from Waterfall to Agile. Agile allows companies to release frequently to meet customer demands in this digital transformation era. Release cycles are much shorter than before and are shortening. They're actually going shorter and shorter. Companies need to adapt to new working methodologies. So working Agile is completely different than working Waterfall, and it requires some organizational shifts. So where do we stand with that? Is Agile has become the standard? Is it the norm today? So the answer is definitely yes. This is from an HPE survey also from last year, showing that 67% are either pure Agile or leaning towards Agile. And only 9% are pure Waterfall or leaning to Waterfall, and there are some which are hybrid. So definitely Agile is the norm. What's also interesting to see in this report is that there's no generation bias in those numbers. So they surveyed different age groups, and you might expect that Agile is going to be like a millennial thing. Millennials will go Agile faster than older generations, but that's not the case. All age groups are turning into Agile at almost the same rate. So that's just an interesting point. And when did it all happen? Waterfall has been with us since the 1970s. Agile started more or less 15 years ago, and as you can see here, there's a major uptick in 2009, 2010. And since it shows strong growth, it gets to 100%, of course, because this part was surveyed by those who are admitted to be Agile. And they've also asked what are the motivations in going Agile. So there are 5 main motivations that you can see here, but 3 of them are very relevant to what to our discussion today. The first one is they want to increase the level of software quality in organization. As I mentioned, companies today or brands today compete on the digital experience. They need to improve the quality. They need to be able to release faster. That's the third one. And overall customer satisfaction from using digital channels is becoming very important. So this is very, very important or relevant to our discussion today. Now, with all this shift from Waterfall to Agile, testing was kind of left behind. The focus was on the dev team, the processes of the dev team. Dev tools were developed to support Agile methodologies. QA had to catch up with existing or legacy tools. It was not an easy task, as I'm sure most of you know or experience firsthand. Testing has become more and more of a bottleneck to this shift from Waterfall to Agile. The challenges are even growing harder because release cycles are getting shorter, regressions are being built up, and therefore the challenge is only getting worse. And there's an ongoing debate between the quality that you want to achieve from the product and the velocity by which you need to release, and QA or testing couldn't keep up with that. Adding to that is the release and the introduction of many different platforms to increase the number of number of digital platforms, so mobile devices of different brands, different operating systems, different browsers that have accumulated a number of versions that are still being used. So the platform times the test cases that I need to build have created huge matrices for or huge grids for many companies, as you can see here as an example, and it's becoming also a very, very difficult challenge. So with all that, everybody would agree that test automation is a must. If you want to deliver the digital experience that is expected from you, if you want, then you need to be able to release fast and at a high quality, and therefore you need test automation. And that led to the very quick adoption or introduction into the market of Selenium. Selenium actually started more or less the same time, 15 years ago, when Agile started. As you can see here, it has become the de facto standard in this industry. This is from Google Trends, just looking at search terms. We've put here Selenium, of course, but also some of the major more legacy tools. So you can see UFT, SmartBird, Recentis, Ranorex. They are all being dwarfed by Selenium, and I think it tells a lot about how Selenium has conquered this market. But Selenium comes with a cost. It's a great technology, it's a great platform, it has a vibrant community of developers around it. But first of all, it requires that you set up an environment. It doesn't come for free. It is open source, but you need to set up and invest in the environment. In some cases, you need to bring in specialists to help you with that. Then you need to bring in or hire a team of skilled engineers to be able to write tests for you. Your manual testers, which I'm going to discuss in a second, could not do that or don't have the skills to do that. They have other skills. And even companies that have gone through this process, when it comes to maintenance, they realize that maintenance is very difficult to apply. It might be very cumbersome, and in some cases even prohibitive to Selenium projects. And we've seen actually some Selenium projects being canceled just because of maintenance. Manual testers, on the other hand, bring a lot of value to many of the companies that they work for. They understand the business processes and the applications that they test very well. In many cases, they're also coming from a testing discipline. So they know how to structure testing, how to test, what to test, which is, again, very important and very valuable. For adopting new technologies, they're already there. You don't need to invest in hiring new teams and restructure the team. And they are less expensive overall than test engineers. And fact is that still the world depends on manual testing. This is from a Capgemini report from also, I think, from last year or 2 years ago. 70% of testing is still done manually. And this, of course, could not support, or it's very hard to use manual testing for supporting the digital transformation. I mentioned that manual testers bring a lot of value, but manual testing as a practice, of course, is not very efficient. So companies are trying to move that into automation. I mentioned that before. It's very difficult to do. You might lose some of the knowledge and the deep knowledge that manual testers have if you replace them with automation engineers. Of course, it's a costly process, time-consuming process, and maintenance, again, might turn people back from automation into manual. So what the market should look for is how to bridge the gap between the clear need for automation in order to support the digital transformation and the value of manual testers as I described it. So the way to do it is to find a way to allow manual testers to start creating test automation without having to teach them how to code, because this is an entirely different skill set. We also need to connect them to the Agile and DevOps methodologies. I'm using Agile and DevOps interchangeably, and it's not entirely true, but just to mention that DevOps is, I'm sure you're familiar with that, but it's an enabler for Agile. manual testers need to be on there. There are many companies where manual testers are still in different teams. They are not connected to the core Agile team, and this has to change. And overall, automated tests should be easier to create and easier to maintain, again, in order for testing not to be the bottleneck for high quality of web applications as it is today. So the Codeless Way allows you to keep the same team by giving the testers, the manual tester or the business testers, visual tools for creating their tests. It's very easy to start with most of them, of course with ours, but with many of the others. It's a SaaS platform, no need to set up an environment, you just get started. And there are different approaches that codeless automation providers offer to reduce the maintenance overhead. I'll share some technical details about how we do that, but overall we're able to remove that burden quite dramatically, and I'll talk about that in a second. Codeless, for those codeless solutions that are using Selenium as the underlying platform like we do, allows us to bring out the best in Selenium. So we're using Selenium, we're enjoying the breadth of functionality that Selenium offers, but we overcome some of the challenges that it brings with it, as I mentioned before, the need for engineers, maintenance, etc. What we also offer is a way to harness the strengths and the breadth of functionality that Selenium has and bring it and make it all accessible to manual testers. So you can actually select any open source library from the Selenium community, import it into our platform and make it accessible to the same visual UI to your manual or business testers. And this is a huge benefit that helps in bridging this gap that I've mentioned before. Now, some of the best practices as we see them. First of all, you need a codeless platform to be connected to your DevOps processes. By the way, it doesn't say, or I'm not trying to say that if you have an existing Selenium infrastructure with a team of engineers, you need to remove that or replace that. What we offer is a way to enhance that and actually allow manual testers to also start creating automation. So we're not trying to remove existing Selenium or automation operations. Another best practice is to use analytics in order to help you understand what tests you should run and when to run them, which tests to run first, which are most valuable, and actually look at the text in the context in the context of the specific test suites that they are executed with. Adopting machine learning algorithms, I mentioned that we use that for reducing maintenance overhead, and I'll share some information on that in a second. It's very powerful, and it's greenfield for this technology to be able to help with maintenance. And another best practice is to start testing earlier in the process, what is sometimes called shift left or continuous testing. When you have a visual tool for your testers, they can start creating their tests earlier in the process, not wait for the application to be ready, but actually start designing and creating the test before that. And once the application is ready for testing, immediately launch the test against it. So you're able to test earlier, you're able to find issues or bugs earlier, fix them earlier, and overall improve the velocity of your software development cycle. So I mentioned that I will share some information on that. We use machine learning technology in order to help us identifying changes in the underlying application. We've created a set of algorithms that do that by assigning a large number of different attributes to every element on the screen. So we're not only looking at the technical locators, we're also assigning some attributes of our own. We're pulling all that and we're putting all that into a scoring mechanism, and we use the scoring mechanism and machine learning algorithms in order to identify changes in the application, and we fix the tests accordingly without asking the intervention of the user. Now, this is still not 100%, but it's very significant. This is from a recent benchmark that we've done. So we took a sample of, in this case, 730,000 test steps from across different customers, different industries. We realized that out of that, 93.5% haven't changed in that sample, but 6.5 have changed, which is a huge number. It's close to 50,000 test steps or elements that we tested that have changed for different reasons. Our machine learning algorithm was already capable in fixing 82% of those, and do that again automatically without the intervention of the users, and 1.2% overall broke. So from the 730,000 test steps, only 9,000 actually broke. By the way, fixing a broken test is also much easier than with plain Selenium, because you do that visually on the screen. You don't have to go back to the code from that. But this is, as you can see, a huge reduction, a dramatic reduction in the maintenance overhead. These are some real-life examples that we're able to fix. This example, we see a change in the ID attribute. So the ID of the element has changed. I guess that most, plain Selenium or other automation frameworks would fail here and break the test. We were able to understand, so to speak, that this should be the same element even if the ID has changed, and we fix the test automatically without breaking it. This one is actually a change in a text element. It's the same site but in different languages. Our algorithm realized that that's the case and didn't break the test. Same here for placeholder attribute, and you have many other real-life examples of how our machine learning algorithm are kicking in and don't break the tests. The last thing that I want to share with you is a case study of one of our customers. I think it summarizes pretty well everything that I've just described. This is an insurance company with kind of a sizable testing organization of 45 manual testers. Those testers are professionals in their domain, so they are all insurance professionals. And they used to have a QTP in the past, but it wasn't maintained correctly. And when we met them a little over a year ago, they were purely manual, and they were looking for an automation solution. So the first thing they did, like most other companies, is look into Selenium. They started the project of evaluating what would it take for them to implement Selenium. They realized that it will require some investment in setting up the framework, as I mentioned. They would need to hire a team of engineers. But what bothered them the most is the fact that they would need to let go some of their manual testers, and they didn't want to change that. They didn't want to change the teams and how they're structured. They really value the knowledge and expertise, the domain expertise that those testers have. So this was mostly important for them to keep the same team, and they were trying to see how Selenium could help with that. They had some ideas of having manual testers define the tests for engineers to write them, but they didn't really get to decide on that, and eventually didn't select Selenium. And then they've met us, and we've introduced them with our system, and it was a very good match for them. First of all, we allowed them to keep the same team, and as I mentioned, this is the most important thing for them. Those insurance professionals can now, or are now, creating automated tests, which are very relevant. They're all very experienced testers as well. So this is how it is structured today. There was no setup required. Some setup some minimal setup to grant access from our platform into their network. Because they are very highly regulated, we need to pass some security checks, which we have. And they realized that test creation with our platform could be very fast and significant. And today, 1 year since deployment, we've since trained and certified 18 testers, which are all the relevant testers. The other are from a different team, which is still testing legacy tools, mainframe platforms. But the team that's focused on web applications, it's an 18 testers team, and they are all certified on our platform. They're already testing all of their applications. They have dozens of them. They use the tool both for testing, regression testing as part of the development cycle, but are also running it against the production environment for monitoring purposes. So that's a different team in the company that are using our tool in a different way, actually different than what we initially built it for. So that's another flavor of what we offer. They've already created more than 1,000 tests, and again, they run them on schedule a few times a day, and for monitoring every morning, with hundreds or even thousands now hours of test runs. So this, to summarize, this is a legacy, a slow adopter company in the insurance space, which is again slower to adapt to change, but they need to compete on customers. One of the main factors is the digital channels that they offer. Of course, they provide information online, but they're also selling insurance policies online. This has become again very important for them, the focus for the company, and we help the testing part of that process not to be a bottleneck anymore, but it's actually leading innovation in this company. And with that, I will end my talk. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Dror, this is Peggy.
Hi, Peggy.
I have a couple of questions for you. The first one is, can you help me understand how you distinguish between manual tester and tester? Is a manual tester someone who doesn't use tools, a tester who doesn't write code? That's the question.
Yeah, so mostly I'm referring to testers who don't write code. They, of course, could use tools. They use tools for, in some cases, creating the test management tools, some specifications tools, but I mean testers who do not write code. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question. How do you access applications your clients want to test? Do your systems have direct access to internal company servers?
Yes, that's a great question. I mentioned that briefly talking about the Phoenix Insurance. Our solution, as I mentioned, runs in the cloud. The way it works is that for every test execution, we spin up a dedicated server on our Amazon platform. On this server, we launch the selected browser, could be any of the common browsers, and we use this remote browser that runs in Amazon in order to navigate or in order to access the tested application. So if the application is available outside, it's in production and available in the internet, that's easy. But again, going into applications that are in the network is a challenge. We have different ways to address this challenge. The easiest way would be for customers to whitelist our IP on their firewall. We have a single IP or a few single IPs that they can use. It satisfies some customers, but I must admit that not the highly regulated ones. For them, what we offer is first, we have created a VPC option, which is a virtual private cloud on Amazon, that allows a customer to have their own separate environment for test execution as part of our platform, but it's separated from other customers. And we create a VPN tunnel between that virtual private cloud and the customer network. This is considered much more secure than the previous option, and this satisfies some of the highly regulated customers that we have, again, in the banking industry, the insurance industry, etc. We also have an on-prem version where everything runs on the customer or in the customer network, but in this case, you lose some of the benefits of using SaaS, but that's, of course, a general debate, what's better. But we're trying to work with most of our customers on our SaaS offering.
Okay. Our next question, how do you manage motivation to move a manual tester to be an automation tester?
Yeah, so I mentioned before that manual testers bring a lot of value to the organization. They're very knowledgeable about the business processes, the applications, but they are, in some cases, concerned about the future. They see that the world is shifting to automation, into code, and we see actually some companies that are trying to take the group of manual testers and turn them into software engineers. They send them to coding courses, and I think that somehow defeats the purpose. They're probably not going to be the best engineers after having a 1 or 2 months coding course, but with a codeless platform, they can go to the next level, become great automation engineers, quote unquote. They're not really going to write code, but they're going to leverage their knowledge, they're going to leverage their experience and be able to join this digital revolution or digital transformation era using such codeless tools. So we take the coding skills part out of the equation, and we let them create real automation, real automated tests, but without the coding part. I think it's a great motivation for them to start or to go into that new age, but again, without having to learn new skills. Using codeless platforms, ours and many of the others, is very simple from the technical perspectives, and it allows them to demonstrate, again, their expertise and professionalism in testing and in their specific domain.
Okay. Next question. How do you get around challenges with the application when some parts of it don't offer automation tools? Some tools are not sufficient.
I didn't get it. Can you repeat that, please?
Yep. How do you get around challenges with the application when some parts of it don't offer automation tools? Some tools are not sufficient.
I'm still not sure I understand the question, but our focus is on supporting web applications and web applications only. We support them on different platforms, so all desktop browsers, but also mobile browsers. Everything that's web is supported by our platform. So I don't see, there might be, I'm not going to say it could never happen, but there might be some parts of an application that our technology wouldn't support out of the box. What we can do for that, first of all, we allow customers to write code. So again, we are targeting manual testers or testers who don't write code, but if a customer has coding skills or an engineering team, they could write JavaScript code assets, upload them into our platform, and we can have a tester use those as part of the test. So if there's an area of the application that's not supported by some of our controls, this might be a way to go fix that. Another way is the Selenium bricks technology that I've mentioned that allows us to import existing Selenium libraries that might support those areas of the applications that we don't, and then we make that accessible through our platform to testers using the same visual UI and overcome that. So either importing Selenium libraries or writing your own piece of code and use that as part of the visual test that we create, the visual test creation platform that we offer.
Okay. Another question, does TestCraft use Selenium in the background?
Yes, we do. Selenium is at the core of our platform. We use that, but again, you can think of our platform as a layer on top of Selenium that makes Selenium accessible to testers, to manual testers or business testers. So the answer is yes, and we're actually working hard in order to be able to use more and more of what the Selenium community has to offer through this Selenium bricks technology that I've just discussed of importing open source libraries into our platform.
Okay, the next one. The new automation tester only records the scripts. Do you only use Selenium RC?
So we're actually not recording a script. What we do, because it's a different talk, but recorders in general are pretty limited. You can record a session and then you need to find ways of editing and maintaining this closed session. Recording in some cases have some limitations. They cannot record iframes or new tabs or things like that. We don't record per se. What we do is we give the user experience of a recording. So they do go through the applications and point and click to elements on the screen, and which we then capture, but not as a recorded session, but as single actions that the tester takes on the application. We build those single elements or single steps into a model-based approach. We offer a canvas that actually builds a model of the test, and then it's very easy to maintain and work on this on the model, even if the test is not running. So you can add elements on the canvas, you can remove elements, you can start new branches from an existing test, and then you can launch it again, and going back and forth between working with the real application and the canvas. The canvas also allows you to start testing earlier in the development cycle. As I mentioned before, you can have a tester work on the canvas, design and create the test on the canvas, even as a specification tool. And then when the application is ready, you can immediately run the test, the steps or the elements from the canvas against the application, do the mapping between those elements and elements on the application, and you have an automated test ready to go. So this is how we address recording in general. We're not recording, but we're offering the same user experience.
Okay, can your solution work on MAM wrapped applications?
I must admit that I'm not sure what that means. If you can share the question later, I'd be happy to look into that and answer.
Okay, we can do that. It seems like the tool is customized. How can we do coding? Which language does it support?
So the way to code is to write JavaScript code, which we will execute as part of the test to run in the browser. So that's the language, the coding language that we support if you want to add code assets into the platform.
Okay, We have a few more here. Does your platform have API testing capabilities?
Not at the moment, but that's something that we're actually working on right now.
Okay. Is there any functionality in Selenium that is not in TestCraft?
I'm sure there is. Selenium, as I mentioned, is a vibrant community of has a vibrant community of developers around it, and the way for us to make it available is the Selenium Bricks technology, which I've mentioned. So, in theory, you can take any Selenium library and make it accessible through our platform. We haven't done it yet for all libraries, but if a customer has a specific need, then we can definitely support that. So the answer is kind of yes and no. We don't have the entire Selenium functionality in our platform, but we can have it very easily for specific customers. Eventually, we're looking to build like a library or a marketplace for such libraries to be available through our platform. So we are looking to make, again, the entire Selenium functionality available through our platform.
Okay. Is your platform HIPAA compliant? Do you have any current healthcare clients in the USA?
No, we don't at the moment, not yet.
Okay. Is
but we
BDD...
have other.
Oh, sorry.
We have other certificates that might help us become or be HIPAA compliant. We have an ISO 27001 certificate for how we handle data. We're also enjoying some of the security benefits or measures that are offered by Amazon, but we're not HIPAA compliant per se.
Okay. Is BDD test cases supported?
Not specifically. It's kind of a different approach. So I'm not sure how to answer that. I would say again, not really. I need to discuss this question in more detail to understand exactly what does it mean.
Okay. Let's see. What verification review process is available to confirm differences that the machine learning process fixes are correct and valid?
Yes. This is actually something that we take care of with this technology. We've actually gone to a point where false positive are almost down to zero. We do allow customers to point us, that's part of the UI, to point us to some more riskier elements. And in some cases, we ask the customers to help the algorithm learn in order to reduce that false positive almost to zero. So it's taken care of as part of the platform by asking for the user to interact. That's how it's done. But it really is the fact that we're still not at 100%, that we offer an 82% rate of fixing tests automatically is derived from that. We don't want to have false positives, so if we're not sure, we're setting the threshold at a certain level in order to avoid false positive, even at the risk that the test would break, and then we would ask the user to intervene. So it's kind of a delicate play with the threshold, and it's currently pretty much optimized.
Okay. How well does the AI handle dynamic data sets? For example, e-commerce ticketing platforms where specific performance and seat availability will change frequently. Is it able to accommodate for these situations automatically?
Yes, it does. That's part of what the algorithm is doing, trying to analyze such dynamic changes and still understand or realize, so to speak, that we're talking about same elements. The best way would be to actually test it or try it on a specific platform to make sure, but the general answer is yes.
Okay. How do you decide what to automate? Do you automate defects first or functional tests first?
I guess that's a question on best practices, because we don't do the automation ourselves. We allow our customers or our users to automate the tests. I would say you should start with the functional testing, but it's I guess it really depends on the specific application, the specific tester. Again, testers who are experts in their domain would probably be able to answer this question much better than I do on a general level. So I think it really depends. I don't have any good answer for that.
Okay. Can the test scripts be kept in the internal company repository for proper versioning? We use very strict instance of Gigi Cloud.
Yeah, so at the moment, no. Just to explain how this works, we do have a versioning option on our platform, so you can start new branches and develop new versions. They currently do not integrate with external Git platforms or other version management tools. What we do allow customers to do, and this is actually very important, I didn't mention that before, we allow our customers to download the Selenium code that is generated by our platform. It's not intended for them to download, edit, and upload back again. That's not supported, but it's more for continuity. So if eventually they decide that they don't want to use our platform anymore, then they can rest assured that the investment that they've done is not going to waste, and they'll be able to download the Selenium code and run it on another framework. Of course, that's not our intention, but this is something that we offer, which is it's pretty unique. So you can download, you can archive, you can store the different versions, but there's no integration today between our platform and other Git platforms or anything like that.
Okay, I have just a couple more here. Does the tool support desktop application in Sabre?
No, not at the moment, no.
Okay. Who defines elements in TestCraft, and how will TestCraft detect these elements?
So on our menus, we have a very long list of different elements to cover almost all of what can be, or the elements that can be found on a web application. So when you build a test, you can select from a very long list of elements in different categories. When we're using, so we have that for the canvas, for the continuous testing approach of using the canvas for creating a test. When the test is being created on the fly in this sort of recording mode that I've talked on before, then we identify the elements automatically. So, and again, the entire set of elements that might be available on a web application. So you just point and click to an element on the screen. We identify its type. We allow the customers, of course, to change it. but we do that automatically as the test is being developed by the tester.
Okay. What are you using? Excuse me. What are you using for multi-platform validation? What are you running the mobile OS on? Simulation or actual devices?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have our own browser lab that supports the common browsers, Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, and mobile simulators. So we're using simulators for mobile devices. We do work or integrate with external lab solutions and allow our customers to execute a test from our platform on external lab, and that could include real mobile devices.
Okay. And what does the reporting look like?
Yeah, the reporting, actually we have a dashboard that shows information about the state of testing in the organization, the number of tests that were created, execution details, execution time, some information about test creation and information about test execution, including the results of the executions. It's all in a dynamic dashboard that allows you to drill down to a single project level or to a single user level. Other than that, all of the executions are being stored and we allow the customer to browse through them. The results of every execution include the version, the type of platform that the test was running on, which suite of course, which flows. If you're running a suite of tests, it shows you details about each of the flows in that suite. If there's a success or a failure, and if there's a failure, you see a detailed description of what went wrong. And in addition to that, we store screenshots of every step of the way. So you can actually go back to any previous execution and get all of those details, including the screenshots, and we point you directly to the bug or the issue, or to the relevant screenshot. This information could also be exported to external tools. So we have integrations with the CI platforms, of course, test management platforms, and we can send the results their way and actually become an integral part of the CI model or the DevOps chain this way, going back to the title of this presentation.
Okay, and one final question. Does the platform integrate with continuous software development platforms such as Jenkins, TFS? If so, what platforms do you support?
Yeah, so as I just mentioned, of course, we do Jenkins, TeamCity, CodeShip, CircleCI, Visual Studio, the online version. Yeah, so many different CI platforms. And if we're missing one, we can very easily add it. And we actually allow such platforms to initiate a test run on our platform as part of the build process. We send the results back, allow you, of course, to set a rule on the CI module to maybe stop a build if we report back that there was a failure or a critical failure. Of course, that could be defined. So the answer is definitely yes to mostly all of them.
Okay, we are still getting questions, but what I am going to do is I will download all of your questions and I will give Dror the opportunity to compile his answers to all these questions. We will post these with our recording on the website. So I noticed, Neha, you have explained what your MAM is. I'm going to give that question and explanation to Dror and let him address your question. So please check back. You will each get a link when the recording and these questions have been posted to the website. So that concludes our webinar today. Again, the next webinar is July 11th, Mobile Visual Testing with Dmitry Vinnik. Please check back for that. A quick reminder about our conference coming up at Sheraton Pentagon City in October 22nd through 25th. And that's our webinar for today. Please check back. We are posting new webinars to our calendar every day. So thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dror.
Thank you. Thank you, Peggy.